That looks like we're live. That looks like we're live. Hey, hey, hey! Yep. Okay. So a quick little video today. I thought it would be fun to take a look at some of the little projects we're having that we're working on, and also kind of compare the size of them, see which ones folks think are working best. Hello, hello. Do we have anybody on here today? I don't know how to actually look at who's on here, but we're going to be going live officially here in about 3 minutes. So just trying to get a sound check here, see if we have anything. Yep, good. All right. So I think that I don't really want to talk about the scale too much right now because Vaughn B. Hello, hello, Vaughn B. How are you, sir? Let's see, what time is it for you over there? It's early in the morning. I think it's still fairly early. What is it? 6 hour difference? Bright and early, up at the crack of dawn over there. Oh no, it's later. Oh yeah, it's later. It's not earlier. So it's 6 hours later. Yeah. I forgot which direction the sun came from. Earth is such a weird planet. Almost 5 p.m. there. Very cool. Look, Vaughn. Look what this little lovely is. Oh, it's the thing. It's the thing we've been waiting for. So pretty excited. Pretty excited. We will definitely be talking about this more during the video tonight. We'll be going live here officially in about 2 minutes. E.S. Taylor. Hey, E.S. Taylor. Thank you for jumping on here, buddy. I think I saw you testing a video. I didn't get a chance to look at it yet, but I saw a video that said something like you were testing your phone or something. Are you trying to stream live from your phone, or were you just using your phone as your camera? Anyway, I guess I'll figure that out when I actually get around to watching the video. We have been crazy busy here, though. We're working hard to get miniatures packed up. I've been working on the China Station book. Anyway, I don't want to go over all of that too much right now because we'll definitely be going over that some more. But what I wanted to do today was just kind of look at some vehicles, see what you guys thought. Actually, going to try to compare some apples to apples a little bit today, and just kind of look at vehicles in different scales. Again, I shouldn't be going over that because I'm going to repeat myself on it. Let's see what's Eric saying here. Yeah, you could do live with YouTube now with only 50 subs on your phone. Oh, that's cool. And community posts at 500. So they lowered the threshold for those. So it always seemed weird that it had such a high threshold anyway, but that is cool. That is cool. About being able to go live with your phone. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked using my phone. Now I'm not using my phone right now. I'm using my webcam over there and my webcam over here. And basically the reason I have to do it this way is because I'd like to be able to have two cameras. So I like using the cell phone if I'm only going to use the cell phone. But as soon as I want a second camera in there, as far as a live situation is concerned, then it makes the cell phone a little bit harder to use, unless I'm going to turn it around and point it at myself and things like that. And I'm not very good at that. So let's go ahead and get this started. Hey, everybody, this is Dave here at Pulp Alley. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to take a look at some vehicles today, and we're going to try to compare apples to apples and actually look at, the same vehicle basically in different scales and kind of compare the two and get an idea about what we feel works right. I guess I would ask you two things. One is you should use the scale that you like. You should use the scale that works for you. And this is not an attempt to sway you or make an argument to tell you that you're using the wrong scale, because honestly, I don't care. But I want you to see some comparisons if you're trying to think about, what scale would I like to use. Pulp Alley is a fun game that is easy to include vehicles and tanks and airplanes and fun stuff in. So I do get that question sometimes. What scale should I be looking at? Um, let's see. I'm also looking at some of the chat that's going on here. So if you have questions or something you want to say, you can drop it in the chat. Chances are I'll try to spot it as well. Before we get too much further, please make sure you hit that like button for us. That means a lot to us. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider being a subscriber. And if you're already a subscriber, you ought to have that bell clicked so that you'll be notified when we upload new videos. So I really like 1/48 scale. That is my sweet spot, and I use different scales. I don't believe in the idea that one scale to rule them all. When I can find them, I find that 1/48 scale works really, really well. It's not a particularly easy scale to find. There are a few Tamiya vehicles, and we've done videos about the vehicles that we use. There are some Tamiya vehicles out there that work pretty nice. There are some Ace models that fit the time period that we're doing. But there's not a big, broad, lot of selection out there. So if you aim for 1/48, you're going to be a little bit limited on what you pick. Let's take a look at some of these vehicles that I have set out here, though, just so we can get started on this. Now, these two trucks here are basically the same, and I don't want to move them around too much because some of the parts aren't glued on. Because they're still a work in progress. Here are two vehicles, two trucks that are basically the exact same truck. One is in 1/56 scale and one is in 1/48 scale. Now, this is much more indicative of the actual size of that vehicle in comparison to these models. And I know a lot of people, say, I think mistakenly, that 28 millimeter is 1/56 scale. And it's really only that if you only consider the general height of the model. The truth is that 28 millimeter miniatures are almost always disproportionate in their scaling. In other words, they are a little shorter than they ought to be. Their heads are definitely more 1/48, sometimes even bigger than 1/48. Their shoulders and all that sort of thing. Have you ever, put a 28 millimeter miniature up against a 1/48 scale? The 1/48 is a little bit taller, but oftentimes the head and the width of the shoulders and all of those things are almost identical. Even when you compare like weapons, if you put like a 28 millimeter rifle up against a 1/48 scale rifle, you'll find they are scaled almost identically. So for me, 1/48 is the sweet spot, and that's really what I look for my eye. When I'm looking at it, this feels right to me. When I look at this, it feels a little bit small, and there are folks out there that really enjoy using 1/56 scale. And one of the reasons why they use it is because it is small, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a long tradition in wargaming for vehicles being smaller than what they should be. I don't mean that in a bad way, but scaled slightly smaller, it keeps the costs down, especially back in the days when things like this were made out of metal, and then we got into plastics and things like that. I think now that almost all of this stuff is coming out in plastic, there's really no reason to kind of downscale stuff. For me, I prefer 1/48 scale, but I tell you what, there's nothing wrong with this vehicle right here, because trucks come in so many different sizes. To me, this looks a little bit small, but there's nothing wrong with having, this is more like a mid-size or a relatively small or normal size pickup. And this is a big 3-ton truck, so you have those differences in scale and you can still use both on the table and have fun with it. They're just different trucks. Let's take a look at another example over here. These are two trucks that are basically the same. This is a Tamiya 1/48 scale. Oh, see, I don't have that glued on. I'm not supposed to be moving these. And this is the, oh, doggone it. Now I can't remember. Help me, guys. Rubicon. Rubicon, that's who makes this one. This is the Rubicon 156 scale. So some people say they like to use the 156 scale because it lets them put more vehicles on the table. I'm not sure how it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. When you compare these two vehicles, this is far more accurate to the scale that vehicle should actually be. This feels pretty small. And I guess maybe like the extra ½ inch or whatever, if your table is so cluttered with vehicles that you need that extra ½ inch, it feels really, really odd to me. I don't know. What do you guys think on that? Hero Forge. They don't get, and don't forget, Dave, what some people consider a mini to be 28 millimeter, actually 32. Yes, you're exactly right. We got that scale creep going in there. And I think, let's remember that there's no standardized thing when it comes to 28 millimeter. As a matter of fact, I hate calling 28 millimeter a scale, and you're going to get me on a rant here. So I hate calling 28 millimeter a scale because it isn't. 1/48 is a scale. That what they mean when you say 28, 1/48 scale. That's accurate. It's measurable. It means something. 28 millimeter is more like a size, right? It's like buying an extra large t-shirt. Different manufacturers have a different opinion of what, different t-shirt sizes are going to be, and they have lots of room to decide what that's going to be. And this exact same thing with miniatures, with 28 millimeter, with 32, with 34, yada yada yada. It's a broad scope, so you can't really take it too serious when there's no real accurate scaling there. To anybody that's into engineering or mechanical drafting or things like that, calling 28 millimeter a scale always feels very artificial. Anyway, I would still use both of these vehicles on the table. I would still use both of them. Again, trucks come in many different sizes. It's just not that big a deal. Here's a 1/48 scale vehicle. These are all works in progress. So here is, this little staff car, and that feels right to me. That feels like this character could easily be in that vehicle. It feels like, this height compared to the vehicle works really, really well. Here's a couple little tanks. Whenever you see like the little 156 scale tanks on the table, and try to imagine people loaded up and riding on them and things like that. Now these are not identical tanks, so these are not an apples to apples kind of comparison here. But again, this is a really small tank, and this is an even smaller tank. But historically, I believe this one was actually a little bit bigger than this one. I could be wrong on that, though. There was that one time that I was wrong before, so I'm due for another one. But you look at those sizes, and personally, which actually feels like it fits those characters. Now I know it also depends on the miniatures that you're using, and here I'm using artisan miniatures, 28 millimeter. If you're using things like the Warlord brand of plastic miniatures, I think they are a little bit smaller than these. So your 156 scale might actually look even better than the 148 scale. So again, it really depends on what you're putting together. Here's an airplane. Let's take a look at an airplane. Here's a one. A lot of people ask, what scale airplanes should I look for? And I use 148 scale. I use 148 scale, and here are a couple of our Pulp Alley figures. These are the pilots and drivers pack stuffed in there. And I tell you what, if you've ever tried to fit a 28 millimeter miniature in the cockpit of an airplane, you start going, there is no way this airplane is too big. It's a tight fit because their shoulders are much more in line with 148 scale in their heads and that sort of thing. They're just squished a little bit, which doesn't change anything when you're trying to get them to fit down in an airplane. The pilot up here, or the fella in the front seat, I shouldn't say the pilot, the fella in the front seat actually fits in there pretty nicely. The fella in the back seat, his shoulders are a little bit wider, and I couldn't actually get him in there straight. I had to kind of twist him a little bit to fit him in there. So, but that looks really nice. Those are 28 millimeters miniatures in a 148 scale airplane. So if you're looking for airplanes, occasionally I have used 172nd airplanes, but I only use 172nd if it's a really big airplane and there's no way that I would get it to fit anyway. All of this is really subjective, and it comes down to what you like, So again, you should use what you like. If you like 156, if you like 172nd, if you like 143rd, which is these big, like this big truck here, this is a die-cast 143rd scale. Now, this truck, if it was scaled accurately, would be much more, these two trucks would be about the same size. You could tell that this one is quite a bit bigger because it is 143rd scale and this is 148 scale. But there's nothing wrong with that because there are plenty of times where trucks were made a little bit bigger to carry heavier loads, cargo trucks and things like that. So it still works perfectly. And I put that out on the table with my 148 scale vehicles, and I put it out there with my 156 scale. So tell me what you guys like. Do you guys use vehicles in your games? What scale are most of your stuff? Or do you mix your scales? I'd like to know. Leave me a comment below. And while you're at it, make sure you hit that like button and make sure you're a subscriber. I play with 132nd and 135th together. You know what? I would love to do some 135th scale stuff. And that harkens back to my childhood. Like when I first started into this, down this path, I really started with modeling. And that's kind of what got me into, World War II stuff. And then that got me into squad leader and then yada, yada, yada down from there. So 135th is always my sweet spot where I kind of, harkens back to my childhood. So I'd like to do some 135th scale gaming. I think that would be fun. And there's a lot of vehicles out there for it and beautiful Tamiya stuff. Hey, Kenneth, thank you so much for jumping on here. Happy Veterans Day to everybody out there. Don't forget that we are doing a live video tonight at 8 p.m. with Bessie. Appreciate you guys jumping on here. And I guess that's going to be it for right now. Join us tonight, and we'll talk to you soon. We're going to talk more about the characters book tonight. Characters book. Very cool. We have one. We might even try and give one away. All right. We'll talk to you tonight, boys and girls. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining. Dun 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 dun.